Right, we're going to start recording. So I need to apologize because I don't have one of the fancy Logosynthesis Day backgrounds. Zoom was not my friend today when I was joining, so you just get my normal everyday background. Um, so we'll give people a few minutes to pop in, and I suppose what I will say is myself and Myriam have produced a book and we'll introduce ourselves. We'll talk a little bit about the book and our background and our experience working with teenagers and young adults. And then what we'll do is we'll open the floor to questions. And Myriam, I think we're both more than happy to have as many questions as possible because that's where the real learning comes from. You guys don't need to just listen to us waffle on.
Yeah,
But maybe we'll get started. So Miriam, do you want to introduce yourself first?
of course. Thank you, Alan. I'm Myriam Nordemann. I'm French, living in Italy, and I wrote a book with Alan in English. I'm counselor, I'm instructor, master practitioner in logosynthesis. I work with logosynthesis since 2016. I really it I use logosynthesis in many with many clients and in many cases. I love work with children and I love to work with young adults and teenagers because logosynthesis offers a big range of possibilities to work with creativity and fun with young people. I also wrote a book for children, Willy and the Little Monsters, that you can find in French, Italian, English, and German. That's that's all for me. And you, Alan, who are you?
So my name is Alan O'Donoghue, and I am soon to be a master practitioner in logosynthesis. I'm a coach and youth and family coach. I've been working with children and young people for almost 25 years, which makes me feel very old. I know all of you are looking at me going, there's no way he's that old, but it's true. I've been doing it a long time. And I work a lot with parents and families, and I've been working with logosynthesis since I think 2013, I think. Um, and it is, for me, one of the most powerful tools, especially working with children and young people. And it is amazing how open they are. But in my experience of working with practitioners, they can be very worried about working with children and young people. But myself and Miriam, we met at the summer conference in 2019, and we, after a couple of years, we kind of came together and given our experience working with young people and children, we said, let's create a resource, not for parents, not for teachers, not for practitioners, but for the young people themselves. And we just launched Damn You Anxiety. We had another name for it, but it may not have got us on the TV or on the radio. You can imagine what it might have been. But essentially, what we wanted to do with the book, it's a workbook, and we wanted to try and cover as many aspects of growing up and some of the challenges that people will face and try and empower young people to be able to manage those stresses for themselves. Because for any of us, when we're not feeling okay, essentially, we're probably not feeling in control of what's happening for us or happening in the world. So, with this workbook, we try to use very practical activities that young people can take away, dip in and out of for themselves, and make them as applicable as possible to what life is like for young people. Given that myself and Miriam are so close to being teenagers, and I think we're hopefully going to have it translated into French, Italian, German, possibly Spanish. We're thinking maybe Dutch as well. But at the moment, it's purely available in English. And what I'll do is I'll pop up in the chat later on where you guys can go and pick it up. So I suppose I'll just give a little bit of the background of the work that I do with young people. So a lot of the time, young people will come to me because they are struggling with anxiety around school, around their self-esteem, around family challenges, and their peer groups. And why I love working with young people so much is that they are so open and so interested in something that works. So when we work with logosynthesis, obviously we find that a lot of people will find resolutions very quickly. And young people, because they're so trusting in the process, find that they can shift very quickly. So some of the ways I've supported young people in the past have been with sleep issues where they couldn't sleep, food issues where they were very picky eaters, where they are struggling with dealing with how they are viewed by other people, but also how they view themselves. And it is so powerful when you see a young person, especially, become so much more confident in their ability to manage things and they can they just live then afterwards. They're like, okay, this is the new way of being. Whereas some of the adults I would work with would be looking back and going, yes, well, I've always experienced this, and this is always the way things have been for me. So, will it come back? And that happens less with young people, which is so, so powerful. Myriam, what about you? What's your experience been like working with children and young people?
Um, I do agree with you, and because I realize that working with children and young adults, teenagers, it's very efficient. Logosynthesis is very efficient, is very fast, and it's very intuitive for young people. They immediately are seeing that it helps them, that the worries are going away, that they have more self-esteem, they feel more confident. Recently, I work with a lot with problem at school, with peers, and also I remember someone that was very anxious because of she had problems to read and dysfunctions in reading, and she was very anxious to not be able to succeed at school and to do her homework and all her stuff for her to be able to follow like the other students. And it was very, very interesting and very fast. Usually, I love to be very creative in my way to work with young people. Especially, I like drawings. A lot of young people love to draw and uh, to put on the sheet a lot of colors and express what's happening in their body, what's happening in their emotions. And it's so wonderful to see them, how their feelings are changing before and after a logosynthesis um, work. At the beginning, they're very stressed, and you work with them, and you see also that their smile are calming, and they feel more happy to do what they do, and it's wonderful to work with them. I wanted also that to say that it's also interesting to work with dreams and to work with movements also. I know that you use a lot the maps, Alan, in your practice.
Yeah. So again, a lot of young people that I've worked with over the years, can find it quite challenging to be asked questions face to face. So this is where mapping is really, really useful in terms of getting them up, getting them moving so that the focus isn't directly on them. And again, this is why with the activities in the workbook, we've tried to make them as practical as possible. So I use mapping, I use timelines a lot, I use symbols. I have tons and tons of symbols here that we use. I'll give you an example. There was one young person that I was working with. I think they were 8 or 9, and they would get in trouble a lot in school. And we decided to work with the symbols. So they were picking out all the different symbols and all the different people in their lives. And he picked out a shark, and he said, I'm the shark. And we looked at, well, what does a shark do? Well, a shark goes around biting everybody and trying to kill people. And I said, and does this shark want to be a shark? And he disappeared over and he's rummaging around in the symbols and he picked up a dolphin. And I went, no, the shark wants to be a dolphin. And I went, okay. And we used the shark, the image of the shark, um, through the sentences, the basic protocol. And at the end, he went, but I am a dolphin. And his mum called me 2 weeks later and said, I haven't had a phone call from the school.
Mhm.
And I said, well, what's different? And she said, well, I don't know. I'm a bit afraid to ring the school to find out. But I haven't had a phone call to say he's getting in trouble, which is so unusual. And there was a lot of stuff in the background within the family dynamics that were causing this young person to feel not okay within themselves. But that simple little process changed things for this young person. And I have not heard from the mum since. Like we finished our sessions and he's not a shark anymore. And all of a sudden, he was able to see that, well, this is actually who I am. I am who I want to be. It's just the blockage was stopping me and making me feel like I was something else than I actually am. So it was really, really powerful. So if any of you are working or looking to work with young people, definitely mapping, definitely symbols, definitely different ways. And like even for yourselves, and like in fairness, Myriam has done a lot of the majority of the activities in the workbook. And they're all so diverse and different that you guys as practitioners could absolutely pull from it and use with the young people that you're working with. I actually, Myriam, I didn't say it to you. Today, let me see, which one did I use? Um, I used one of the ones in the workbook with one of the young people for the first time, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was really powerful. So I can say that that activity that you created absolutely worked.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else,
I'm
Miriam, before we start to bring in some questions?
I'm very happy that you give me this feedback because for me to create an activity for a workbook was a dream. I really enjoyed to do it, and and I think it's very important for people, for young people, to have its own books, and that's like a friend. And you can bring it everywhere. And when you feel that something is not going is not going as you like to, you can make an activity, you can draw, you can take an activity. You don't have to begin at the first page, but you can pick up an activity in all the book and find what is interesting, what it trigger you now. And yes, I wanted to say that you can. There are a lot of activities in the book, but you really enjoy to create your own symbols, like Alan said. I like also work with young people with heroes of films, for example, or books or a Harry Potter, or I don't know, Star Wars, are wonderful also way to bring some topics and trigger and work on it with creativity and fun.
Yeah, and you've actually just sparked something in me there, Miriam. One of the questions I get asked a lot about working with young people is how do you talk to a young person? And it's something that it's something that we need to remember. So if you are working with an adult, they're making the decision most of the time to come and work with you. If you're working with a child, they're likely not making the decision. The decision has been made by the parents to send them to speak to you. And what I've always said to people is it is up to us to make the young person feel comfortable and feel engaged. So the very first session I ever have with young people is very relaxed. It's, what are you interested in? What do you like? Because that gives you a lot of very important information for the potential places that you can take the work when you're starting to find the right symbols, the right process, the right protocols to use with these young people. So making it very fun, playful, jokey is really important at making the young person feel comfortable and relaxed. Because as we all know, if we're working with logosynthesis, trust is an imperative part of the process. So the more somebody trusts you as a practitioner, the more likely you are going to have a positive response from working with them. So if you're starting out working with young people, if you've had challenges working with young people, make it fun, make it playful, make it something that doesn't need to be, let's delve straight into the issue that you have. And sometimes with teenagers, I'll have them kind of look at me when I start asking them about their favorite pastime. They're like, am I not here to, you know, make my anxiety go away? And it's like, oh, we'll get to that. Don't worry about that. Let's just get to know each other. What are your interests? Oh, really? I'm really interested in that as well. Would you believe it? And we have a conversation. So I am conscious. Sorry.
Before, oh, sorry, you
Oh,
was no, I was saying before we let the questions, I wanted to say that the book is available on Amazon and also on your website.
yes, it's on my website, of which I will put the link to. I did put the link to Amazon in there,
Maybe we can put the link, yes, of
and I'll
our.
put the link to my website as well. So do we have questions? We're opening the floor. Just unmute your mic and ask your question. And if you're not comfortable speaking in the room, you can absolutely just pop it into the chat.
I'm screwing up the courage to talk about our teenager, who is very, very, very depressed and such a sweetheart and like so deserves to live a life of freedom and expansion. Um, I've had a few comments that are so beautiful and helpful. Thank you all so much. Um, and like they don't want psychotherapy, and I don't blame them. They also didn't want EP energy psychology if it's too psychoanalytical, if it's too talky. So I'm wondering if logo synthesis, especially because they can go nonverbal when they get stressed. So there are a few hints about that again in the chats. But I'm just wondering if you guys would want to comment either on this teen or working with teens with other kinds of disabilities, about communication disabilities specifically, I wonder.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I work as a coach, and I find that young people, especially, are much more open to engaging with a coach because they'll have had some experience of being involved in some sort of activity where they'll have had a coach of sorts or maybe a teacher. And I'll always say to a young person, you know, to describe the process. So, have you ever done a sport? And if they've done football, for example, yes. Are you a better footballer now than you were on the very first day you started? And usually they will say, well, yes, of course I am. And how did you get better? Well, I trained and I practiced. Oh, really? And how did you know what to practice? Well, my coach told me. Oh, really? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So this is exactly the same. What we're going to do is we're going to look at where things are for you right now, where you would like them to be, not where anybody else would like them to be, but where you would like them to be. And then what are the steps you can put in place to get there? And then we look at what are some of the bumps in the road that might get in the way of preventing you from getting there. And that's usually where I do the therapeutic work. So that's where the logosynthesis comes in. And
Sorry, so where does
yes,
spirituality come in then? Because like that seems like real like SMART goal stuff, which I left behind a long time ago, and I bet you did too, actually, in its own way.
leaving smart goals behind.
Yeah.
Well,
Or is this really SMART goals thing, or are SMART goals like a stepping stone to this deeper spiritual aspect?
so the spirituality is very much individual. And for me as a practitioner, what what I look at when I'm working with somebody is not trying to present ideas that might turn them off, that are not applicable to them. So spirituality will come into it if they bring up spirituality. But when we first meet somebody, they just want to feel okay. Okay. And I always work with a parallel approach. Practical things that they can do to start to feel more in control of what's going on for them. And at the same time, within the sessions, I do the therapeutic work that deals with the more, we'll say, spiritual aspect of things. So for me, I wouldn't call it spirituality. What I call it is blockages. So our energy is either in flow or it's blocked. And if it's blocked, there's something blocking it. But that thing may not be ours. So it could be a blockage that we've taken on from somebody else. But for a lot of children and young people, they don't necessarily understand or can't comprehend that this blockage actually belongs to my mom or my dad or my grandparent. They just feel it. So that's where we would start to use that work. But the parallel is important because if a young person, like a lot of young people, don't have a lot of control over the decisions related to their lives because they're children and young people. So within reason, if they can start to believe that they've got some sense of control over a little aspect here, then the therapeutic work that's going on behind the scenes is where they will start to feel that sense of relief and release and that their energy is more in flow. Does that answer your question?
To a large degree, yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Nice to hear about the inheritance stuff as well and the absorption in the fields. And I'm hearing the echoes of you talk about containers
Mhm.
and how unsafe containers can contaminate, as it were. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but like they can create those blockages that don't belong to the person. And the beauty of that is it's amazing with the young people, especially when they realize, oh, this might not be mine.
Mm.
How even that understanding and realization can help them let it go to an extent. Now, it's not going to be fully just disappeared into the ether necessarily, but it does give them a sense of, great, it's not mine, or it may not be mine, so I don't need to hold on to it. And, for a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, what they'll say is, this is just the way I am. I've always been this way. And I'll always say, well, as a little baby, you weren't this way. You were born absolutely perfect for who you needed to be. And you just took on a belief system throughout your life that made you believe this is the way that you are. And again, that's very freeing for them. And sorry, you've got your hand up. Yes, please jump in.
Yes, thanks. I would be interested if you've ever worked with a child who has homesickness. And if you can say anything specific to this point. I had a 12-year-old girl a couple of weeks ago, and she had to go onto a class experience of 1 week and was almost sick about that, to be so far away from home. And there was some disruptions in the childhood, changing cultures. So there was an obvious reason for her not liking to go anywhere else. But we had only 2 sessions of time until this class thing started. And it would be interesting for me if you have specific ideas for this homesickness thing.
Yeah, so Myriam, if you don't mind, I'll jump in because I have a lot of experience of school refusal and homesickness. So since COVID, what has happened is the glass ceiling of you have to go to school has been broken because children were told you can't go to school. So that's all of a sudden created a pathway that maybe wasn't necessarily there before. And I have 6 clients at the moment who are all school refusers. And the first thing I do is I talk to the parents and talk to the school and say, this is not about getting the child back into school today or tomorrow. For some young people, it may be a week, a month, 6 months. But let's take the pressure off the child because that child is feeling so anxious about being in school, but also probably letting the parents down. They're feeling bad that they are causing stress. So all of that mixed in together is creating a situation where the child just freezes. I cannot walk out of the door. So this is where the activities are really, really good. And there is, excuse me, Myriam has created a fantastic school-related activity in the workbook that gets the child to look at what are the different elements of school that you don't like. So for a lot of the young people I work with, they will say, I don't want people talking about me. I don't want people asking me questions. I don't want people saying, where have you been? And for adults, that's, well, why would we care? But for that young person, that's so huge. So we start to work with those. Myriam, do you want to talk a little bit more about the activity within the book or your experience?
No, I'm a little bit anxious because I think that we have to go back to the main room now.
Yes, we'll be going. So, and I hope that's of some help. I'm conscious of the time as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop my email address
Yeah.
into the chat. And if people want to ask any further questions, please drop me an email. I will absolutely answer. It might take me a little while, but
And the
yeah.
same for French and Italian speakers. I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Available. You.
So Myriam, anything to wrap up as we finish? You want to say?
No, I'm very happy with the baby book we did our baby book, and I enjoyed very much, and I hope it will be useful for everyone. And I think it's not useful only for young people. I think it's useful also for adults. It's my behavior, but yeah, I'm very happy to offer this work to everybody now.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Thank you for joining us first of all, and Myriam, thanks for being my co-author, and I hope we see you all